tough for DA, it's tough for all not-for-profit organisations in terms of continuing to press the agenda for appropriate reformation in relation to disabled people. But nonetheless, DA is well stocked with great people and huge energy.
It's a real pleasure to be here, and we really value our relationship with DA, with Kate, with Vanessa, Paul, and we don't always agree, but I think it is a really important relationship based on a mutual understanding of where we're both coming from. So I always try and make sure that we never forget that what we're doing is about people, and over the last few months I've had the privilege of meeting hundreds of disabled people who have made sure that if there was ever any chance of me forgetting that I won't be able to do so. And the first person I want to talk about is Rowan Jade, who some people in the room will know, who is currently chairing Equality 2025. And I remember Rowan saying, look, I don't want society to pity me, I don't want people to have low expectations of me, I don't want you to compensate me for not having a job. I want you to make sure that I can get up in the morning and get to work so that I can keep on working as I have every day since I left full-time education. To be clear that this is not an issue about ability, it's an issue about discrimination and about how society discriminates against disabled people and their ability to have an equal life with everybody else. We need to take the next step, and for me the next step is about power. And the next story I want to talk to you about, the next person I want to talk to you about is Lucy Mason. She'd had fantastic social workers, and where she'd had a social worker who had helped her dream and fly and take risks, she'd felt like she was able to do anything. But when she'd had occasional instances where that wasn't the case, and someone who was acting as a roadblock, she felt powerless, because it wasn't actually up to, she didn't have the ability to correct that. She was dependent on who her social worker happened to be. And the lesson for me from that was that the fundamental thing is about making sure that the power was in Lucy's hands rather than the social workers. And when we came in '97, there were no programs, for example, to help people on incapacity benefit back into health and back into work. Now, I really feel strongly that too often this debate about IB is characterised as being punitive. There are some people who are going to be a very long way from the labour market. And for that group, we want to find as much support as we possibly can.
It seems that although there's some really good policy in terms of the approach to helping people be more independent, when it comes to issues about some of the foundation issues around transport, around accessible housing, and providing a joined-up approach for disabled people so they get funding for the care and support they need to be ready for work, there doesn't seem to be a joined-up approach to give people that support that they're entitled to.
The comments you made, and in particular the fact that there has to be a recognition that it's not just about the emphasis being on disabled people going back to work, but also removing some of the barriers. There has to be an emphasis on how we make up the services that disabled people use and how we join up those services to deliver them. My question is, the key, I think, to actually delivering quality services that disabled people can actually control is that commissioning process itself. And my question to you is, how do we make sure that the commissioning process at the coalface actually delivers for people, and it's not just about trying to manage budgets?
Okay, thank you.
Well, they can often overcome issues, but actually sometimes with the best will in the world, if there were reasons why the service wasn't joined up in the first place, it can be pretty hard to overcome it at Whitehall level. And that's one of the reasons why I think the right to control could be so transformative, because what it would do is, instead of there having to be a process at the centre which ends up with people agreeing to share objectives and targets and all those things which are actually pretty technically tricky to do, you could actually give people the ability to join it up themselves. So that they actually say, okay, well, I can get this money in terms of transport, I can get this money in terms of social services, I can get this money in terms of access to work. Actually, I can put that together and I'm going to pay someone to pick me up and drive me to work and bring me back in the evenings, and that's the thing that I need. Or actually the thing that I need is a specialist equipment, which I couldn't just fund out, I wouldn't have been able to fund out of access to work, but if I put that money together, I can pay for that, and then I'll be earning X amount of money, and I can pay for all the other things which I'm no longer getting from the budgets that I've spent on that equipment. comes in, which is, essentially there are three forms of accountability. You can have accountability to civil servants and to ministers, you can have accountability in terms of commissioning and tendering, or you can have accountability to the user. And I always prefer accountability to the user. I think in the end that gives people power. It's not always the right thing, but that's where I always like to start.
And independent living is our responsibility in terms of making it work and making it work well. In reality, when a small group of people in the 1980s who were living in residential care decided to try and move out, I have to say I came out of residential care in 1974.
I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about the history of self-directed support, because I think a lot of people assume that it's something that's been imposed on us by government, but in fact it actually evolved as a result of disabled people campaigning for more control over the support they received, as Anne said in her presentation. And really, I guess it started off with the Independent Living Fund in 1988, where, as Anne said, the 5 people got money and started living their lives. And then obviously direct payments came in the mid-1990s, and it was revolutionary for disabled people, including myself. Direct payments went from strength to strength, but not everyone was able to access them. And this was for a variety of reasons, one of which is there was not enough support services or advocacy available. So in 2005, as a result of the success of InControl, the Department of Health piloted another model of self-directed support, which did aim to integrate the 6 different funding streams that Anne mentioned before into one pot or individual budget. The pilot ran for 2 years with 13 pilot sites working with all adult groups. The pilot finished in April 2008 and the evaluation came out a few weeks ago, but the indications are mostly positive, and a lot of local authorities are now implementing individual budgets in their local authority.
I mentioned earlier on the difficulty getting coordination. DWP can't often coordinate their own activities, so trying to get it more widely is going to be a challenge. But as Julia said, the latest Green Paper, No One Written Off, Reforming Welfare to Reward Responsibility, did have a dedicated chapter entitled Delivering Choice and Control for Disabled People, all about independent living. It offered some views and thoughts that are very, very early, I think, in terms of Department for Work and Pensions taking this on board. And we understand there is an advisory group who are going to be delivering a report later in the year specifically on this issue, so it's worth looking out for that. Now, the whole thrust of the Green Paper is about moving people into work, as I say, with this conditionality being placed upon them. And of course, Disability Alliance supports efforts to improve the employment, helping disabled people get out of poverty. And we did feel the Green Paper placed an over-emphasis on the individual and didn't take account of some of the wider barriers. Now, whether that's down to the nature of the impairment, whether that's down to employer attitudes and the discrimination that we still know exists, whether that's about environmental issues such as housing, transport and so on.
So thank you for coming. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do stop around if anybody wants to have a quick word with any of us before you go. If not, safe travelling. I hope you don't get too wet on the way home. And let's close the conference.